For more on the humanitarian situation in Gaza, we're now joined by James Elder, who's spokesman for UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund. He is live from Deir el-Balah in central Gaza. Mr. Elder, thank you very much for being with us. You were last in Gaza 6 weeks ago, I understand. How would you compare the situation now and then in terms of the humanitarian crisis? How much more desperate is it for the people of Gaza?
Fally, it's dire. It should surprise no one that it is this much worse because, again, in the last 6 weeks, every single day we've had the bombardments, the drones, the relentless attacks, the denials of aid. So it shouldn't surprise anyone, but it should break our hearts and a blight on our humanity that it's been allowed to get to this point. We are now at a point where I'm outside a hospital again. This is a wartime hospital. As soon as I walked in, Fally, I found a little boy, Ali, who 5 days ago was asleep in the family home when it was struck, and the next thing he fell 3 floors and landed in rubble. I met his mother 2 stories above. She explained that 2 other siblings have been killed. This has gone on for the last 6 weeks, Fally. This has gone on for 250 days. Now, of course, it's sweltering heat. People say to me, oh, people must be used to that. Yes, they are used to the heat. Gazans are used to the heat in their family home, in their home with air conditioning, in their home with ceiling fans, not in tents crammed together in a breathless space with 40-degree heat on sand. This is what people are. They're being denied aid, they're being denied protection, they're being denied dignity. And whilst the last 3 days, Fally, have been sleepless because of the bombs and the drones, it's 250 days for the civilians here. So yes, everyone here, physically, psychologically, is somehow just holding on.
I'll ask you a bit more about the impact of the war on children in just a moment, but I just wanted to get to aid, because you mentioned aid there. How much of it has gone into Gaza in the last few days? I understand you were part of a convoy of aid trucks that were trying to get into the Gaza Strip. Can you describe to us the process of that, what it takes to get those aid trucks into Gaza, and how many have gone in these past few days?
Yeah, it's a very complicated process to get in because of the restrictions put on top of aid. But we do it. We know the paperwork. We know the hoops to jump through. But it is very difficult to get aid in. For example, in May, humanitarian agents got in half as many trucks of aid, Fally, as in April. Half as many when we have this critical nutrition situation. Why was that the case? That was the case because in May, of course, we had the Rafah offensive. The limited, quote-unquote, limited offensive in Rafah that led to the displacement of 1 million people. So less aid is coming in, but it's not just getting it in. It's when we get it in, it's making sure we can get it across the Gaza Strip. Without aid workers being killed, more aid workers have been killed in this war than any war since the advent of the United Nations. It's extraordinary. It is an incredibly difficult place to work, but Palestinians and foreigners are very brave on the front lines. Once you get it in, if we look, Fally, yes, to Wednesday a few days ago, it was a mission of UNICEF. We were taking a truck full of nutritional and medical supplies for 10,000 children. Nutritional and medical supplies for 10,000 children. We had all the approvals. We were going to Gaza City from Deir el-Balah and from here. It's basically a 40-kilometre round trip. It took 13 hours, and we spent 8 of those around checkpoints, arguing around paperwork. Was it a truck? Was it a van? All sorts of he said, she said. The reality is this truck was then denied access. So those 10,000 children did not get that aid. Now, UNICEF will go back again, but it's not as easy as just returning the next day. Because of how dangerous this is a place to operate, remembering Israel as the occupying power has the legal responsibility to facilitate that aid, we must have armoured vehicles with convoys, right? UNICEF also does sanitation, we do water, we do protection, we need to be everywhere. So that was denied. But Fally, there is an even more bitter, dark aspect to that mission. As we stood on the coastal line there for hours and hours and hours, I was watching fishermen. I was watching men they were probably lawyers and engineers in a past life, with a single fishing net each, just trying to catch a few fish for their families. Suddenly, tanks came from the very large Israeli checkpoint. A tank came. Next thing, all the fishermen fled. As 2 fishermen fled, they were shot. They were shot on the beach. I was with other UN agencies, doctors and paramedics. They immediately rang authorities to get us permission to access these people in case there was a sign of life, to immediately get them medical care. That was denied. That help was denied. Finally, half an hour later, as those men lay there, those men who were no doubt someone's brother, father, son, as they lay there, the other fishermen, their family, their friends, took body bags that we had and went down the beach and brought them up. I saw them. One man had been shot in the back. Another man who still had a fishing net round his foot was shot in the neck. I know that because I saw that, only because we bore witness to that. These are not unique events on the Gaza Strip.
How incredibly sad. James, you talked about the children and meeting children who were injured in recent Israeli attacks in Deir, el-Balah, where you are right now. There is the impact of the war, of course, of children being killed. They're being maimed, but there's also malnutrition, which is spreading among children fast and reaching devastating and unprecedented levels across Gaza because, as you mentioned, of a lack of humanitarian aid and the restrictions on aid going into Gaza. What impact is this having on the children now, and what impact is it going to have on them in the future?
The impact on children, whether it's night after night of bombardments or the idea that a teenage girl or a grandmother queues all day, maybe to get a shower, the idea that disease is taking root. And yes, we had stabilisation centres, Valley. They are critical places for those children with some of the most lethal forms of malnutrition. They closed during the Rafah offensive. So that's thousands of children who were getting the treatment they needed. They're not getting the treatment they needed. All of this, the bombardments last night, I was in Rafah last night, it was very intense. From bombardments to Apache helicopters, 24/7. No, there's no way anyone slept. I don't sleep, I'm in a building. How do you sleep in a tent amid that? It all comes back to a ceasefire, and the more and more we see, the more it seems that those people who have the decision-making power on a ceasefire seem so utterly disconnected to the suffering of everyday children here on the Gaza Strip.
James Elder, thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you for joining us from Gaza. James Elder is a spokesman for UNICEF, live there from Deir el-Balah in central Gaza.